All right, everybody. City Attorney, we're going to start the meeting. Welcome, everybody. I love all the dialogue and conversation, so that's awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call the regular meeting of December 13th, 2021 of the DeKalb City Council to order. Roll call, Ruth.
Morris. Larson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
McAdams. Verbic.
Here.
Favor.
Here.
Mayor Barnes.
Here.
6 present.
I did want to say Alderman McAdams and Alderwoman Morris did reach out and let us know that they were under the weather and couldn't attend tonight. All right, moving on to item B, the Pledge of Allegiance. This weekend, much to my irritation, Navy beat Army. So if you don't mind, Alderman Favor, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And really quick, if anyone had any public comments at all, if you could, right outside the door, there's a form that you can fill out for speaking during public comments. If you could fill that out and give it to Ruth Scott there in the back corner, that would be phenomenal. Otherwise, I won't be calling anyone if I don't have those forms for public comments. All right, so moving on to agenda item C, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman,
Larson.
my God, Larson, thank you. Wow. So I told some people I wasn't shaking hands earlier because I feel like I'm a little under the weather, and I think that might just prove that out there. Holy cow. And then seconded by Alderman Smith, right? Okay, just making sure. I'm glad we can all laugh. I appreciate that. Any comments? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Larson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6 aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item D, presentations, we have none. Moving on to agenda item E, public participation. Looks like we have none, all right. Moving on to agenda item F, appointments. Number 1, appointment of Steve Honeywell as Chair of the Citizens Environmental Commission for a 2-year term through December 31st, 2023. Any comments on that? If not, I'll take roll call to make him chair. All right, roll call, please.
You need a motion in a second.
Do I really?
Yes, sir.
Dang it, man. All right, I would take a motion to approve Steve Honeywell as the Chair of the Citizens Environmental Commission.
So, second.
Wonderful. That was moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Favor. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6 aye.
Awesome. All right, moving on, so the appointment is approved. Moving on to agenda item G, approval of the minutes. Number 1, minutes submitted by the city clerk. We have no minutes submitted by the city clerk. So I'm just going to move on to number 2, minutes submitted by the recording secretary. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our recording secretary?
So move. Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Verbic. Comments, questions?
Mayor, do you have to read those?
I'm getting the nod from Ruth. So I have a motion and a second to approve, A, the minutes of the special joint City Council and Finance Advisory Committee meeting of November 15th, 2021, the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of November 22nd, 2021, the minutes of the special City Council meeting of December 2nd, 2021, and approval of the executive session minutes. Comments or questions? Yes.
Is Clerk Cohen okay?
To my knowledge, Clerk Cohen gave us no notification whatsoever of whether he would be here or not, so he's just absent.
Okay.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Verbic.
Yes.
Favor.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6 aye.
Awesome. All right, moving on, so the approval of the minutes passes. Moving on to agenda item H, the consent agenda. Number 1, accounts payable and payroll through December 13th, 2021 in the amount of $4,075,431.65. Number 2, investment and bank balance summary through October 2021. Number 3, year-to-date revenues and expenditures through October 2021. Number 4, Freedom of Information Act FOIA report, November 2021. Number 5, approval of the 2022 schedule of meetings. Number 6, DeKalb Police Pension Fund Municipal Compliance Report for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2020. And number 7, DeKalb Firefighters Pension Fund Municipal Compliance Report for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. Resolution 2021-104, approving the cancellation of the December 27th, 2021 regular meeting of the City Council and approving the payment of invoices for the second part of December prior to the January 10th, 2022 regular meeting of the City Council. And lastly, number 9, Resolution 2021-105, authorizing the release of certain executive session minutes, meeting minutes, and the destruction of certain verbatim recordings. Can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. Comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 ayes.
All right, the consent agenda passes. Now moving on to agenda item I, public hearings. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:06 p.m. And it is a public hearing for the FY 2022 city budget, comprises 32 funds with projected revenues of $108,510,518 against $106,180,581 in expenditures. All city funds are balanced in the FY 2022 budget. Is there anyone in attendance that wants to speak to that item? Hearing none. City Manager Nicholas, do you have anything to add?
No, this is public hearing. I usually defer comment.
So, council, questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:07 p.m. Moving on to considerations, item J, number 1, consideration of the report from Stan Tech about transit center needs and options for location. I don't need a motion to bring a consideration forward, right? Okay, perfect. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The background is somewhat detailed, and there's an even more detailed background to this particular document that's before you tonight. And Marcus Cox, Brian Favor, and others have been working on this for some time, really the better part of a year. But since August of this year, when the council approved a resolution that authorized an agreement with Stan Tech, Stan Tech has made a couple of visits and had more conversation between visits and after visits with our city staff regarding a couple of the things that this council thought at this point we should make a priority. And this is all very preliminary, and one was to define, at least at the staff level, to give to you what we thought the building needs were, which includes the interior as well as the parking spaces, turnarounds outside, landscaping, and all the rest of that. And a total, which I've only summarized in the agenda background that I wrote, was about 11 acres of land that was needed. And I'll just run through this and then we'll have a conversation. And the other piece is that the contract called for Stan Tech to work with us and in a preliminary way, and then to work with the council and the mayor on the identification of the best area for the siting of the transit facility. And at this point, what's before you is just a proposed matrix which would divide the decisions into 4 different areas: operations, acquisition, developability, feasibility. There are a number of criteria in each one. I didn't rehearse all of them, but there are 2 items in your background attached to the agenda tonight. One grid that shows the matrix itself, as well as a grid that shows the space needs. So we bring that to you tonight. There was something also that at the staff level was done. We know a year ago, the staff had made a recommendation for a specific site. And the council was uncomfortable at that time with that site. At the staff level, the thought was, let's bring in some people who are involved with us on a regular basis. Much as we've done with other things, this is not a standing committee. It's not an advisory committee to a permanent purpose. But I went along, and I'll take responsibility for this, with our transit manager and the assistant director of public works to go ahead and give the okay to a group of 5, which includes Alderman Tracy Smith, who would help us make sure that there aren't biases in where we've come to this point before we bring it to the council, and call it, for lack of a better name, a site selection committee. It has just that single purpose and would expire in about 45 days, or as long as it takes to get something to the council and approved by the council. So if the council and the mayor would like to appoint a site selection committee, that's fine. These are just some people who we have a regular working relationship with, and we thought that their advice, because of their unique role, a director of community promotion at NIU, Matt Duffy, the chamber, Steve Irving builds buildings, Tracy Smith, certainly deep involved in transit, Ellingsworth Webb, the property manager for one of the biggest, most active locations for transit pickups and drops. So that's what we did. And I realized there was some back and forth in social media on this point, and it's not a usurpation, I assure you, of the council's authority in this matter.
And Bill, isn't our intent, you might have said it, I was reading, but to make the official appointment on our January 10th meeting?
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Council, comments, questions? Alderman Favor.
No, I would just say thank you, for all the work that went into this. I did look through the background, wanting to make sure, again, that we're not overbuilding. We want to make sure we also don't underbuild. I thought the inclusion of the, I think it's like every 5 years kind of plan that you had there, I thought that was fantastic. And I look forward to seeing what the committee will, what they'll propose. So thank you very much for the work, for all the team.
Alderman Smith?
Yeah, I just want to add that, so people understand that this is federal dollars that we really need to spend, that I think have been sitting in our coffers for a long time. I hate to see that get swept. And there is a lot of federal oversight on this grant. I mean, I be involved in them, there is a lot. So I think a committee will steer us in the right direction, but ultimately, there will be a lot of oversight. So, thank you.
Alderman Berg?
Yes, do appreciate all the information and the work that lies ahead and the willingness of those to lend a hand and help out. I would just say that, again, from a standpoint of location, feedback I've had has been nearness to residential properties. So what kind of a setback could be included with whatever site selection for existing and future residential properties. So hopefully that's one of the things that can be kept in mind as everyone works forward on what is the best site for this. And essentially there's been some confusion, people that have approached me, us calling it a transit center, people thinking that it's a place that they would go to board buses and whatnot. It's more of a garage, essentially. So I'm not sure if naming is important at this point, but there has been some wonderment of what this will end up being.
Good point. And,
Good feedback.
these and other things are very important to get more community involvement. People
Yeah.
feel, oh, that's all that is. And the price tag is huge. I think this is an exciting opportunity for the city, and it's great to be a part of the conversation on this.
Anything else, council? All right, hearing none.
Bring it back.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to consideration number 2, consideration of the city's public transit fares. City Manager.
Thank you. We met about 6 months ago and a little bit over that and talked about the possibility of either reinstating fares on our transit routes, fixed routes, and others. And at that time, as we were just getting out of the COVID year, so to speak, when most fares were suspended amongst our comparable community transit operations, the council felt, the mayor felt that it was best to continue that to late in the year and see where we were. So I appreciate Marcus Cox bringing this forward to me, and I'm bringing it to you to show you in some detail what has happened in the last 6 months or so. And as you can see, amongst those that we identified as comparable transit agencies, only one of those now is still operating fare-free, and the reason for that is more specific to their own interest in delaying reinstitution of fares until they have some new, I guess, hands-free fare boxes, so as looking forward that there wouldn't be as many possibilities for contamination. So spent a little time looking at the actual numbers, what we're charging now, and recommend that the public take a quick look at this. It's interesting that our one-way trips for general passengers cost 50 cents. Senior citizens, individuals with disabilities, K-12 students pay 25 cents. NIU students and children under age 5 have always been able to ride free and would be if we were to reinstitute fares. As you look at the chart on page 16, you see how we compare. We're really at the bottom of all those comparable agencies in terms of what we are actually expecting for round trips. The fare revenue that we might expect at the end of this year, or maybe at one full year, say 2022, knock on wood, no interruptions from a pandemic or a bad business cycle or whatever, somewhere in the vicinity of about $100,000. And 6 months ago, we identified what we've been doing with the fare money, and we've bought a few small vehicles, staff cars, that kind of a thing. But now that we're moving into the first legs of the conversation about design and engineering, we're starting to build up soft cost obligations that we have to pay. So I think $100,000 a year actually won't cover all of that, as you know, from just the amount of federal dollars that are at our disposal, but it certainly would help. And so there, I would say now we've identified a solid reason for having fares as a base, and what we'd like to do is reinstitute, what we recommend to you is the reinstitution of the fares the first day of the spring semester, which is January 18th.
Council? Alderman Perkins?
So why are our fares half of what everybody else's is?
It's, it's an evolution, but this is where we are. Obviously, another conversation would be, should they be higher? And we are heavily subsidized, maybe more than some of these others. Marcus could probably give you a better idea of the percentages. Ours is almost exclusively subsidized. So we, for a long time, I understand it predates my tenure here, that the council had assumed that in the event that other government dollars are basically supporting the system, that if we charged a heavy rate, but it's not enough to really reimburse us for capital expenses and so forth, then there was an equity question there, however one came down on that question. So that's where we are. If you want to have that further discussion, we can have that as well. But we're thinking we ought to at least reinstitute the fares. It doesn't seem to be a burden at this point, the 50 cents. So.
So do we know where we benchmark compared to the others in terms of federal funding percentage then?
Marcus maybe
Is there-
can
is it an
help
apples to
with
apples
that.
comparison?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could just answer the original question, why our fare is 50 cents. When we did the consolidation of transit services back in 2019, the Husky Line route that NIU was operating was a $1 fare. And through that process, through the transit development plan, it was recommended that due to the consolidation, that there be a reduction of fare because that actually entices more people to come out and utilize the bus that may not otherwise. And so that, we actually did see higher ridership on those fare charging routes from the outset of that. And you're right, 50 cents seems smaller, and it is smaller, but it's been beneficial, but it will be something that we're going to continue to monitor to see if it does need to increase down the line. But in terms of the federal share or the state share that we get, those are both based upon population. And so we get approximately $1 million in federal share a year, and that's based upon the DeKalb urbanized area census population. And we can earn more from that because we are a university town. There is small transit intensive cities funding that comes from the Federal Transit Administration. So because we have a kind of dense population in this urbanized area, we can get up to 600 or 800,000 more because we have so many riders in such a small area. So that's also part of what we're trying to work towards, is increasing that federal funding.
I'm interested to know more about that, you know, not necessarily tonight, but I'm looking at it, and on the one hand, I hear city managers say that we are covering most of the costs, but not all of the costs. And then I look here and I see what seems to be a revenue opportunity where we're charging half of what everyone else is, and they're good benchmarks of one another. I think all of these towns are pretty similar with the exception of probably Rockford and Springfield, but they're up at the upper bound anyway.
Yeah.
So I think there's some additional revenue opportunity there
Yeah,
to offset additional
absolutely.
costs.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
Alderman Berwick, sorry.
Will the new garage be cost neutral to the taxpayers of DeKalb? Or if not, what will be that cost of the new garage to the taxpayers of the city?
The operating costs of this facility would be able to be expensed with our state and federal funding. And right now, what we're paying in terms of some of the money that's going towards our vendor TransDev, you know, we're funding their lease that they're having for their facility. But we have a rough idea on what that annual cost would be based upon some discussions with other agencies in the state. But those are all eligible operating costs that would be covered through those grants that would have no impact on the general fund.
So we would not need fares to cover costs to the city taxpayers, then, is what you're saying?
There may be certain aspects of that we could utilize those fares towards. The one thing is that the state and federal grants offset each other in terms of the local match, and fares cannot be considered as local match. So we would be able to utilize the fares for smaller, you know, maybe potential utilities, even though I did say that it is acceptable through the DOPE and the FTA. We still could utilize that for the assistance of the facility, rather now or into the future.
Thank you.
The answer to your question, in both questions, is yes, essentially.
Okay.
The facility is going to be built basically with state and federal dollars. The operation is mostly state and federal dollars.
Right. Thanks.
Alderman Smith?
Marcus can probably, but Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, fares can only be used for transit. I mean, correct? We cannot filter, I mean, granted, they run through the general fund, but they have to be, they can't be used for a police car, for example. They have to use specifically for transit-approved expenses, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And another thing is, all of these other agencies are what classified as mass transit districts, and I think they have a separate funding source, and they have separate requirements where we're not in that classification, correct, if I'm correct?
Correct. Most of them have a tax levy.
Right.
Yes,
So-
sir.
Alderman Favor?
I was, I think it's, as Alderman Perkins and Verbeck and Smith brought up, I think this would be a great discussion, in the future. For tonight, for me, I'm okay to raise the fares to the return of fares to the current set pricing. But then it would be interesting to go through and identify if there's opportunity, if we're not meeting our expenses with our grants and with our state and federal funding, then do we need to review the fares? But at this moment, I'm okay with.
Alderman Berber?
I was somewhat looking the other way, where if there's enough state and federal dollars available, why are we charging fares at all? I think that if we can make this just cost neutral to everyone, including those riders, if we can find those dollars, we should do that.
Yes, City Manager?
Mayor, we are going to return to transit topics in February.
Okay.
At the next meeting on January 10th, we'll have an opportunity for the council to approve the recommended nominees for the site selection committee. But in February, I suspect, Marcus, at the second meeting in February, we'll be about done with that process. And why don't we load up that agenda with also the fare discussion again? And I don't think we lose much if we don't reinstitute the fares between now and then, and let's come back and let's also address, we can give you a little more background information on how these other services are operated in these other cities and what % are federal and state dollar support and what aren't. How's that?
Sounds great, and I agree, like with Alderman Perkins on, this is an opportunity for a revenue stream that's going to help offset some additional expenses that aren't covered with the state and federal matching grants, that we definitely need to look at it. But if they are, well, why not let our citizens ride for free on a transit system that we're running and obviously running exceptionally well? So, yeah, that'll be a good discussion. Any other comments or questions? All right, and that's head nod, so just proceed forward with his recommendation? Okay. All right. All right, moving on to resolutions. Resolution 1, Resolution 2021-106, authorizing a 2-year purchasing agreement with Petroleum Traders Corporation for the purchase of a vehicle fuel for the period of January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. Can I have a motion to bring this to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Verbeek. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 fuel purchasing agreements on the agenda tonight. This one is pertinent to the fuel that's purchased by our Public Works Department. It's used by all the city departments for our vehicles, also used by Voluntary Action Center and the Children's Learning Center and the DeKalb Park District by previous agreements. So we went to bid. Andy Rye superintended that bid. We got a couple of responses, and also we have listed for your background what the oil price information service, sort of the average, the floating price that's a benchmark for where we may land in terms of the results of the bidding. So Petroleum Traders submitted the lowest bid. It's within reach of that Opus baseline, and is pretty comfortably below where we were with Mansfield Oil, and we recommend your support for the Petroleum Traders Agreement, which is on your agenda tonight.
Council? No questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6-0.
Excellent. Moving on to resolution number 2, resolution 2021-107, authorizing a purchase agreement with Midwest Salt Company for the purchase of water conditioning bulk softener salt for a period of 1 year from January 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2022 for the purpose of treating the city's drinking water. Can I have a motion to bring this to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Perkins, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager.
Thank you. So this is not as happy a result. As you can see by the background, we went out for our annual salt contract, and this is a water conditioning rock salt for softening our potable water system. And back in, about a month ago, an RFP went out for, actually a request for bids for that bulk softener salt. We also typically, in these instances, send notices to people who have bid in the past 5 years or so. Just say, hey, we're out here, we're still here, we're needing salt. I hope you'll consider us. We got one bid. It's from Midwest Salt. A couple of them are no longer in the salt business, including some of the larger ones that you see here. And Midwest Salt, which has provided us salt in the last year at the rate of $110 per ton, bid $132.50 a ton. Now, let me give you some context here. The city paid just a little less than that in 2017 and 2018. There's a supply and demand quotient here, and sometimes that is decisive in the pricing. But on the other hand, then in 19, 20, and 21, we were somewhere around $110 to $116 a ton. So we're not in a position right now to find, I think, any other pricing. And got this from Brian Favor with his recommendation to proceed with Midwest Salt. The difference is about $33,000 over the next fiscal year, but it doesn't feel that going out again to the regional manufacturers and traders will gain us any more advantage here. So that's what's before you tonight.
City Council?
Oh,
Alderman?
and we're only recommending a one-year contract under the circumstances. We don't want to get stuck with this for more than 1 year.
Alderman Favor?
I was just going to ask, we'd have to look, is it because now we're doing this at the year end? Is it possible that, all these salt manufacturers they're getting road salt ready and they don't have the other product available? Or is it we just think it's...
To be honest, we're not sure. There's nothing obvious like that. It's a different kind of manufactured salt. It's a little different ingredient than what we throw down on the road. So,
Can we do a quote in June? Do another quote in June and see if it's available then?
Brian's not here tonight, but I'll defer. I mean, he's been doing this for
Yeah.
almost 30 years, so he kind of knows when to hit the market. And we used to hit the market when we were on the July 1st to June 30th budget year, up through 16. And I don't think that played a factor this year.
Any other comments, questions, Council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6-0.
Resolution passes. Moving on to resolution number 3, resolution 2021-108, authorizing a fuel supply branding agreement with Ascent Aviation Group, Inc. for aviation fuels and services to the DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As the background report that was done by our airport manager, Renee Riani, explains, this type of fuel has a little different side to it. In addition to the actual price of the fuel, aviation fuel has, in more recent years, been a competition that invites both the price per gallon and a willingness to entertain certain branding incentives. The fuel suppliers can use our name amongst others to say, we're here in the Midwest, we're here in DeKalb. They give us free pens, stuff like that. Some of it's serious marketing, some of it's just throwaway stuff. But it does figure in seriously into the pricing. Ascent Aviation Group offered our most competitive fuel price in response to our request for proposals. The company has a very large network of flight department users in Illinois, and I think that affected their pricing. So we recommend to you the Ascent Aviation Group's price for the next year. Actually, it's for the next 2 years.
City Council? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 ayes.
Thank you.
Resolution passes. Moving on to number 4, Resolution 2021-109, approving a collective bargaining agreement between the City of DeKalb and Council 31 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Union Local 813 from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. Can I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Favor, seconded by Alderwoman Larson. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I begin, I want to introduce Mike Taylor and John Lucius, who are here tonight.
Welcome,
representing, in their official capacity, our ASME local. And both of them have, in my tenure since 2019, been very much in the middle of conversations that we've had with all of our collective bargaining groups about what's a fair way to compensate our hardworking employees. They represent, this ASME Local 813 represents not just persons who are employed in the street department and water department and other public works realms, but also in all departments of the city. Sometimes in office type functions and building inspection and so forth. And telecommunication and dispatching. So I might just add, as I mentioned in the background, that ASME a year ago took leadership with our other bargaining groups in helping us meet the terrific economic challenge that was thrown our way through the COVID pandemic. I remember very well sitting at the table with representatives of all our bargaining groups and our management group and saying, what are we going to do? That was in March of 2020. And Mike Taylor says, well, I think we need to freeze our wages. And it's not the kind of thing I like to say, but we don't know where the future is taking us. And you may remember we lost more in a day on the stock market that we did in 2008. Just shortly, maybe a week before that. We were all running scared, and they said, whatever it takes, we'll work this out together. As long as we're treated fairly, we'll treat everybody else fairly. So, and I think that spirit lives today. It's always, in my experience, been a big part of negotiations with 813. So last year, there was no increase in wages, and in exchange, we didn't increase health insurance contribution, which would have been a net loss to members of the local, and we did that across the board. We sat down this year to look at a longer term. That was just a one-year contract last year. We look at a longer term agreement. This is a 3-year agreement with the pay increases, which have been identified in the background here. We also have a memorandum of understanding that's going to commit us, work with 813 and the other bargaining groups in the city to look at our fully insured health care products and see what we can do to try to lessen not only their costs but our costs. You may recall that we did this this past spring, and I note this in the background. We were only able at that time to find a more competitive pricing for our dental care products, but we're going to look at this, and we are going to do our work starting in January and have something presented by June 1st. So hopefully we make some progress there. We're all in it together, and I think we can make some progress. So I'm very pleased to present this to you. I think it's a very fair contract. There was some language issues that we worked out just so that everybody throughout the 813 bargaining group was in a position to enjoy the benefits and also assume the responsibilities that this group or that group was doing, just to kind of clean things up, which hadn't been done for a while. So I'll stop there. We recommend this contract to you. We feel it's very fair. and from an economic standpoint and also from a language standpoint.
City Council, questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, then I'll take roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6-0.
Resolution passes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Taylor, I know we're getting into water main break season. I'm sure I speak, well, I'm sure it's inevitable. I'm sure I speak on behalf of council, just, keep you guys safe, stay healthy, and can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it on a Sunday when you and your team are out there, restoring water to our residents. Means a lot, so make sure you pass on to them. We say thank you. Thank you. All right, ordinances, second reading. Ordinance 2021-044, authorizing the 2021 levy and 2022 collection of taxes in and for the corporate and municipal purposes and special service areas of the city of DeKalb for fiscal year 2022. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Larson, seconded by Alderman Perkins. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This particular ordinance was brought to you on November 8th when it was heard on first reading. It was brought back for second reading on November 22nd. And at that time, there was some conversation about engaging the library board to look at the proposed pass-through levy that is incorporated with our city levy every year to form the aggregate levy. The ordinance that's in your background is for the aggregate levy. The city levy that was proposed and discussed and vetted over a number of budget sessions and so forth was the $6,845,317. And that just covers the greater portion, but not all, of our fire and police pension obligations. The library levy, as a result of conversations with the mayor and with representatives of the library board, and with the vote of the library board on December 8th last week, is at $2,675,708. The chart on page 20, which is highlighted in yellow toward the bottom of the page, shows that change. So the aggregate levy is $9,521,416, and that is what is before you tonight. The city is obligated to have our levy filed with the county clerk. This year, with the statutory deadline is on December 28th, and so recommending that we approve this ordinance on second reading tonight. Just say one last thing. The conversation that we have engaged all local taxing bodies about, and thanks to the mayor taking the lead on this, in the last several months is with pointing toward not only the one-time benefit of the termination of TIF 1, but also the rising EAV attributed to new development, particularly on the south side, but also throughout the town. We've done better in terms of new construction than we have in anybody's memory, and for generations, frankly. Should have all of us thinking, and I know we've started conversations with other taxing bodies about what we can do to lower the overall community tax rate. And that not only plays into how we attract new business to us here, but how we keep businesses and families in our community, because property tax does affect livability, and it is something that's important, I know, to the council. So I am heartened and pleased with the council's keen interest in this, and I think that will only continue and build into more engagement in 2022.
City Council. Alderman Burbick.
Yes, thank you for, all of that time, Mayor, in particular, reaching out and working with our partner and governing bodies, and we need to keep that up. We need to find out those things we have in common, that we can have that cost savings or share where we can do more for those paying in than we are now, offer better quality services, and whatever we can do to partner in that manner, that would be great. With regard to the library, we're in a pickle. Again, we're trying to, I guess, convince others to try to be as responsible as possible so that we can offer that cost tax savings to our property taxpayers. How do we collectively get that done without impacting our quality of services? And I think that these conversations with our governing body partners will be very valuable toward that effort. So thanks again.
Alderman Perkins?
My biggest issue with this is from a financial side of things, when I was wearing that finance hat, the one thing I just hated were surprises. And looking at this, you see their levy, the library levy coming in at 13% up when we're fighting, everyone else is fighting to keep everything flat to down. So I think that surprise to me underscores a bit of a process issue. And my biggest issue is the surprise. How did we not know this was coming? Why weren't there any voices saying our levy's gonna go up, what is it, $300,000, right? In a year. So I think process-wise, looking forward, I'd like to see some process. What's gonna change in the process so that we'll know this is going to happen? There's been a lot of voices about this, and the voices are right. Now, multiple folks, we've all had opportunity to go sit in these meetings, these public meetings. There's nothing done under the cloak of darkness. But nonetheless, when we're sitting here and we're the ones approving a $300,000 increase in the levy, the folks in this room are the only ones in the room. And I don't see or hear anyone from the public library here vouching for that. So that would be the one thing I'd like to see going forward, is some voice, some process improvement so that it's no surprise to anyone when this happens.
Alderman Verbeek?
Yeah, and from a standpoint of this pickle that I mentioned, how can we avoid it? Is it referendum? I mean, essentially what we're saying is the library can come to us with whatever increase in levy they would like to pass along.
Whether it's a library or whoever.
Yet we are accountable, well, in this case, we are accountable taking our vote this evening on this. So
We're tied to it.
yeah, I take this very seriously and just think that we need to look at what those better options are. Again, I'm not in the library business. I can't speak to what it takes to operate a library personally, but I can speak to this being excessive.
Alderman Perkins?
And one last thing, and this is the thing that really kind of sticks with me, is we do have the right to vote yes or no on something. On this one, we're literally out of daylight for voting. We're really kind of over a barrel on this, and what are we going to do? You know, because and we don't even have a voice in it. It's something that we're voting on that we don't even have a voice in what's going on with the library, yet it's passing through us, and we're the ones that are being held accountable for it, justifiably.
City Manager?
If I may, these are good questions, and I can give you partial answers, things that are within our control. So all of the EAVs for all of our local taxing bodies, and we share the exact same EAV with the library, but every other taxing body that shows up on your tax bill has some different. The county's the biggest, you know, all the communities rolled into one. Schools are one of the largest, and so on and so forth. The scorecard is intricate. Looks like the 20-inning game, you know, trying to find things, but it can be done, and I think, you know, by the end of January, sometime in January, when everything shakes out for the PTEL, those taxing bodies that are affected by the property tax extension limitation legislation, then we can make that public. Here's where we are. Here's where we were the last couple of years.
So we'll be able to draw some inferences. Is this is this the direction we want to go? Are we looking, is this good on the rate because, we're building the tax base and diversifying the tax base? Or are we going in some other direction? I think, don't mind taking on this responsibility at all. By the end of March, as the trees bud and so forth, and as the planting season gives way to the operation season, we're all doing, helter-skelter, doing paving roads and doing all that stuff. Sometime between now and the end of the next 90 days, we need to do some of this internal planning that we can then help us engage the other taxing bodies and have a spring which maybe gives new light and life, and drawing all these images, to the discussion, which we have every year, as Alderman Perkins was saying, but it's to no end. The cycle begins and ends and begins and ends. So let's shake up the cycle a little bit, and sometime before mid-year, we've got some of these community planning sessions under our belt, and we have engaged constructively with our counterparts in a representative fashion, and at least on the property tax, we see where we are and where we might want to go. So by the time we get the numbers for the EAVs in the September-October period, before they're finally minted at the county level, then at that point, it's just a matter of, what the range is, probably what we'd like to see in way of range. And it's just moving some numbers around then, but we already have agreement, hopefully, on the principles that will guide the decisions on the actual numbers. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't know how else to do it, but every taxing body has their own rhythms. But we would step out of our own rhythm and try to get with their rhythms to have to do this, but I think we can do it.
Alderman Burbick.
I think what are those goals and measures that we set together? For example, new housing starts, new housing development. What are those things that we want to improve for DeKalb in the future?
Yeah. So true. I mean, the price of lumber and steel and right now, which is aggravating, construction and all the rest of that will come and go and ebb and flow. But the property tax is with us always. It's one of the things that's with us. So we ought to be able to control that in some fashion.
Alderman Smith.
I've looked at this over and over again. I just noticed there's a difference in the figures. There's one at 708. Did you notice that, Bill? In the paragraph directly above the chart, it's 2,675,708.
Yep.
And then the other one is 2,675,317.
It's the 708.
Okay. I didn't know if we need to clarify for the
Yeah,
ordinance.
We'll do that before.
If we need anything special.
Well, the ordinance is fine.
Okay.
The table, this has been changed 10 times in the
figured.
last 30 days.
Well, it's funny, I
My
just caught it
apologies.
tonight after reading it like 100 times.
Yep.
Apologize. That's all.
Any other comments?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, for me, I agree when it comes to the library situation, like everyone has said, I don't know what it takes to run a library, and I don't know all the needs that are there. I think coming next year, we need to know those things and understand it better. Because for me, the city of DeKalb, even prior to me being in this role, has done an amazing job lowering the tax rate and then also controlling the levy to a point to put money back in the taxpayers' wallets. And to me, that sends a big sign, especially when we're one of the highest overall tax rates, not just the city of DeKalb, but all taxing bodies in the area, which makes us less competitive. And then they have the library take a levy that's basically almost equal in size from a dollar perspective than the entire city of DeKalb is doing from a property tax standpoint. Just takes me back. So next year, I do look to Alderman Verbeek and Alderman Perkins, who's been in some of the meetings with me, for driving that and some leadership that we can't do this again next year. So I'm 100% behind helping in any way I can to make sure that happens. But then this whole idea of the reduction of the tax rate, if we do have one of the highest tax rates in the area, that means we're not competitive. And we hear a lot about affordable housing, right? We all want to make sure that it's affordable to live in our community, no matter what your income level is, but especially those that don't have a lot, to be able to have a decent place to live and an affordable place to live is important to me, and I know it's important to many that are here up on the council, and I know it's important to a lot of our taxing bodies. And what we need to make sure everyone understands is with all the increased EAV, I mean, at the city here, we have been, and again, prior to my time being here, recruited some amazing economic development wins, which means our EAV is continuing to go up, which means more revenue for our taxing bodies, which means more opportunity to lower our tax rates, but still be able to bring more levy in, more dollars into our organizations. And if we can decrease our tax rate, that means we make it more affordable for people to live here. But then the beautiful part of it is that makes it more appealing for people to want to invest in our community. That makes it more appealing for businesses to want to build new buildings, more data centers that come here, which means more EAV and more revenue. So it is a complete win-win situation. Right now, we are in a unique situation because of all the economic development we have going on and all the increased EAV that's happening, that if all of us, all the taxing bodies can come together and really look at us as a whole, what can we do to drive our tax rate down? All what that's going to do is spur more economic development. That's going to spur more money for more services that we can provide, and we're going to do that while all along making it more affordable to live here. So I'm really looking forward to working with the city manager next year and our other taxing bodies. I can't wait to start those discussions. Can't wait to work with council on the leadership I think the city has shown before I got here and now even during my term. That leadership, we need to show that how effective it can be, and it can be done. And I just can't wait to hopefully get many of our other taxing bodies on board for this concept of let's make it more affordable to live here, and at the same time, that's going to drive more economic development. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 aye.
The ordinance passes on second reading. All right, moving to ordinance number 2, ordinance 2021-045, abating the 2021 tax levy for the debt service of the general obligation corporate purpose bonds of the city of DeKalb. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Favor. City manager.
This is the companion for the aggregate levy, and we do have some bonded debt, and some communities pass along that cost to the taxpayers. We abate it, meaning we pay for that debt service annually out of other sources than property tax. And so this has come to you as it has looked since early November. It's unchanged. The chart on page 23 at the top shows where we are in the levy year this year. There is some change in what the debt service schedules show, but we are actually taking off general obligation debt on an annual basis, and that's a good thing. So recommend your approval.
City council. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 aye.
Ordinance 2021-045 passes on second reading. All right, agenda item M, ordinances, first reading. Number 1, ordinance 2021-051, adopting the annual budget of the city of DeKalb, Illinois, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Verbic, seconded by Alderman Perkins. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. We've talked about the budget, been talking about our basic principles for the FY22 budget since middle of the summer. Had some more time with our Finance Advisory Committee, and back in mid-November, about a month ago, we went page by page through what's before you tonight. There were some minor changes, and those were made, and the revised budget was posted, and that's what's to be voted on tonight. I'm pleased to say, as the mayor said earlier in the public hearing, that all of our funds, there are 32 of them, are balanced appropriately. The city's general fund is in good shape, and we are prepared to do some ambitious things in the next year, as you know from our discussions. So I
urge you to approve this tonight on first and second reading, as there does not appear to be a second council meeting this month, and we'd like to have a budget on January 1.
City Council. I know we've been over this a lot. All right, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 ayes.
Ordinance 2021-051 passes on first reading. Can I get a motion to move this to pass on second reading?
Motion to waive second reading and approve?
Second?
Moved by Alderman Vervick, seconded by Alderman Smith. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes,
Yes.
6 ayes.
Ordinance 2021-051 passes on second reading. All right, item number 2, ordinance 2021-052, approving a development agreement with DeKalb Taylor Solar LLC. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Favor. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. At last, Bill, a lot of economics tonight, and there's some more left. Bill French is here again tonight. He's the Regional Director of Project Development for Sunbest Solar, which would be party to the agreement that's before you tonight in this ordinance. We talked about this at some length back in October. The agreement that's before you has been, we've been back and forth, and the city attorney and I have prepared what's in your background. Just by way of, I guess, reference and also to remind where we left off, it takes a certain amount of due diligence to figure out if this is going to work. There's not just drainage issues. There are glare issues. There are standards that the FAA and the IDOT, the Department of Aviation, require people working on an approved project area to meet. In this case, what we had envisioned when we talked about this in October was that Sunvest, which would be the name of the company, would construct a 5-megawatt solar farm, and that would convert solar energy into electrical energy that would in turn be transmitted to the electrical energy grid in our region. But this due diligence period would be considered the development period in the contract, and that could be up to 2 years. And if we don't think this will happen, but if we needed an extra year, that would not be denied unreasonably, as we were just pursuing, because to get approvals at the state and federal level, it does take longer than it does here locally, no question about it. So after all those environmental assessments are done and studies, and the FAA signed off and the state signed off, and all is looking good, then there would be an operating term. That would be for the construction of the actual solar farm, and the lease that would follow that would extend for 25 years. We went through the economics of that last time, and just to remind you, the initial lease, once we get to that developed point, would be $1,800 per acre per year, with an escalator of 2% per year. The first year that would generate about $86,400 in rent. Over 25 years, that would be about $2,767,000 in rent. There was some discussion at the council level about decommissioning. Those provisions have been elaborated, and hopefully to your satisfaction. Basically, what the agreement states is that the company, if once it's no longer operating, would remove the solar facilities, including any foundations, and restore that portions of the lease space or area that were used for the solar farm to usable farmland, or substantially the same condition as that which existed before. There are certain areas there that are wet areas, low areas that probably won't have the solar panels in them, so restore the drainage channels if that's the case. So we feel it's a fair agreement that would be beneficial to both parties, and we recommend your approval tonight, and we've been asked to do this on first and second reading if you're so inclined.
City Council? No comments or questions? All right. Roll call then, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6
Ordinance 2021-052 passes on first reading. Can I take a motion to, what did you say, pass it on second reading? You had a great way of putting it.
Motion to waive second
Waive second.
reading and approve.
Second?
All right, moved by Alderman Vervick, seconded by Alderman Perkins. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
6
Ordinance 2021-052 passes on second reading. Excellent. All right, moving on to agenda item N, reports and communications. Alderwoman Larson?
I guess I just want to say, as our last meeting of the year, and my first year, I am always blown away by the devotion that I see in every aspect of the city employees of DeKalb. When we were going through COVID, stepped up, froze their salaries, and just like, because that's what we had to do. And running for this position, I had no idea how proud I'd be to hold this position for some truly great people who live here and even greater people who work here.
Awesome.
Blows me away every time. So thank you.
That's great, thank you. Alderman Smith?
I had the honor of being at the fire department today for the swearing-in of a local boy, I shouldn't have said that. Local firefighter, let's call him that, Mr. Isham. He actually went to school with my kids and a good friend of my daughter's. And it's nice to see some people living in the community coming back into work for our various agencies. So good job, Mr. Chief Thomas.
Awesome. Alderman Perkins?
No report.
Alderman Favor? I know, changing it up on you.
Changing it up.
Keeping you on your toes.
I just want to say thank you to all the condolences I received on the passing of my mother. I also want to say, welcome to Kagan Colonel to DeKalb, and everyone have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hopefully it is peaceful and incident-free. Thank you.
Alderman Verbeek.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year. Looking forward to 2022.
Awesome. All right, I just had a few comments, just so people know what I've been up to. First, I want to encourage everyone that if you're not vaccinated, go get vaccinated. Come on. That would be great. And then if you've been vaccinated for a while, go get your booster shot. It's going to take all of us to get through this, and it sure is helpful when we have people that are out and about fully vaccinated. Just a couple things. Met with the Opportunity DeKalb Board just to discuss developments happening in the AGN area. Met with City Manager Nicholas and that team, and it was a great discussion. That led into also some discussions with State's Attorney Amato, County Administrator Gregory, Board Chair John Frieders, and Derek Highland, just on some next steps on some stuff we're going to be looking at in 2022 to continue to work to make our community safe. And it was a great discussion with our partners, and I really do see them as partners in our future endeavors over there at the county. Oh yeah, went to Ken Colonel a couple times. That was phenomenal. Good food, good beer, good people, good owners, just an all-around great restaurant. So I encourage everyone, go out, hang out. What's that?
Already been there.
Awesome. We'll go again. Go often, early and often. It's Illinois. Then also presented to the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce Leadership Academy with Frank Roberts on sustainable economic vitality. That is always a great discussion. He and I have been doing it for the last 10 years. And what I love about the Chamber of Commerce, the Leadership Academy in particular, they're generating a lot of future leaders for our community. You go back to like the referendum days, I think 5 of the 6 chairs of the committees that passed the referendum were all graduates of the Leadership Academy. I know some, and I know people have daughters that went through it that really came out of that class or that year's class and made a significant impact on our community. So I definitely want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting that on and just all the time and energy they put into it to make our community even better by spurring volunteerism. Went to the DeKalb Chamber Winter Bash. I think some other older people went too. That was a great event, and it was a ribbon cutting as well for proven winners that bought the old Farm and Fleet building, what was it? Creative Calligraphy. Yeah, even before that. So, what's that?
Penn's Point.
Penn's Point Market, yeah. But it was really good just to see another business come into town that came from Sycamore, established shop, and is just going to thrive in our community. And I love the investment that they're making in that building, too, to keep it viable. Went to a Toys for Tots event. They've been doing it for 52 years. Greg, I can't remember his last name. I can't remember his last name, but he's been putting it on for 52 years, and it was at the Taylor Street High Rise, and it was just they had music, some fun, and it was a great event all around, and they collected a lot of toys for our tots, which was cool. Did meet with Kathy Johnson, representative from Mortensen, around recruitment and community involvement. I tell you, Mortensen's committed to this community. They are dedicating resources, both in personnel and financial, in order to figure out how to offer as many opportunities as possible, especially for people that are looking for those opportunities. They've got a program, an internship program on creating future apprentices, which is really cool. So they're going to give that to 10 people, I think, this year, and then it'll be up to 50 people a year that they will fund and drive, that are going to give people skills they didn't have before and get them into a wonderful career. So I got to give Mortensen a lot of credit around that. Was also at a swearing in for 2 canines. Chief, that was really cool. They're officers, and it was Roos up there saying, "Raise your paw," and swear after me. But it was a really cool ceremony, and I was proud to be a part of it. Still, I can't say enough how excited I am about our last meeting when we approved the incentive to have a developer come in and purchase Hunter properties. I'm sure, like most of you, I've heard a lot of comments on that, and they have all been in favor of that. So again, I commend the leadership of this council in making something like that happen and happen unanimously. And lastly, volunteered at the IHSA tournament. That tournament is phenomenal. I think it brings in about $800,000 in revenue in the form of tourism to our community. And if you haven't volunteered at it, I would highly recommend it actually it goes out for bid. We got to hopefully get the bid again. And if we do, then I would highly recommend you going out and volunteering and hanging out with all those parents and all those kids on an exciting weekend. And the last thing, Merry Christmas. Been another heck of a year. It's been wonderful to work with this council. It's been even more wonderful just to work with this community and serve this community. Can't say it enough. I hope everyone, just like Alderman Favor said, just has a wonderful and safe Christmas season, Happy New Year, and quite frankly, just happy everything. So Merry Christmas, everyone. And with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Alderman Smith, seconded by Alderman Favor. All in favor say aye.
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 Nay, same sign. We are adjourned.